Hello, and welcome to SuperStree Women in the Startup Ecosystem, the show that talks about the journey, challenges, and the path ahead for women in the startup ecosystem. We put light to make women realize that no less than the sky is the limit for them in this emerging world of startups. I'm your host, Shambhavi Sharma. SuperStree Women in the Startup Ecosystem is a podcast series by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT. DPIIT is a central government department under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Startup India is a flagship initiative under DPIIT intended to build a strong ecosystem for nurturing innovation and startups in the country that will drive sustainable economic growth and generate large scale employment opportunities. My guest of today is an achiever, a fighter, a solution oriented enthusiast, an engineer, and an exceptional entrepreneur. She's not just aced the tourism industry, but has also corroborated her exceptional capabilities in defying the social stigma associated with persons with disability, thereby increasing inclusivity and accessibility in the ecosystem. Please welcome Ms. Neha Arora, founder of Planet Abled. Hi, Neha. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Shambhavi. Thank you so much for having me and for such a kind introduction.
Welcome, Neha. So, Planet Abled is a platform dedicated towards providing equal opportunity for persons with disability. I'd like you to tell the audience about the number and kind of disability that the company provides travel solutions for, and how do you ensure a carefree experience to them?
So, see, there is no specified that, okay, we cater to this particular disabilities only, because then it would again be discrimination because disabilities would be defining how you travel, where you travel, and with whom you travel. The whole idea of setting up Planet Able was inclusion for the travel industry and to give person with any sort of disability or impairment or a medical condition the freedom of choice to travel just like anyone else. So, that being said, there is no specific group. Anyone who is having any sort of accessibility needs can travel with us. We have a non discrimination policy for the non disabled people. So, they can also travel and, just like anyone else. So our group trips are always inclusive, where we mix people with and without disabilities to travel together.
Okay, so all are welcome at
Yes.
Planet Able. Since both your parents are persons with disability, how would you describe your childhood in terms of financial stability, resources that you had, responsibility that came upon you, and what was the society's take and expectations from you?
See, I was a planned child. Like I was planned when they could afford me. So I think my sister really had a hard time because of the because our family was not that financially well off. At my time, they were not rich or well off, but they were okay. So as such, we had the basics covered. It was not something that no, we had very affluent life, but it was okay. And our parents, they were more focused on education and giving a good life rather than, like hoarding money or anything like that. That was never the case. So my childhood was a pretty regular childhood, except that I had parents with disabilities. And um, uh, for us, like for me, it was a normal thing. But when the schoolmates got to know about it or their parents got to know about it, they asked me, who pays your school fees? And I was like, I mean, that's a weird question because both my parents were working, and the kind of neighborhood I lived in, women didn't work there. So, since I come from a like liberal-minded family, and it was a requirement for a decent life that both parents works. So, we were okay in that aspect. I was the only girl in the neighborhood who went to a convent school. The other neighbors' children, the guy went to the convent school, and the girl went to the government school kind of environment. We stayed in a government colony. So yeah, that was there. And I think I would say the biggest positive of being a child of parents with disabilities is you get freedom early. Then, okay, I remember in fifth standard, my mother gave me a list of things. Okay, you know where the market is, you know how to take a cycle rickshaw. Here is a list, here is the money, and once you are done with this list, you can buy a gift for yourself with the remaining money. And I was in fifth standard. So she kind of trained me into going and doing things independently. In seventh standard, I was going to the bank and depositing my school fees myself. I dropped it twice. I mean, lost the money, but I knew banking from a very, very early age. So when I went to college and I met other people and I got my fees, did it myself, and they were like, "How do you write a check?" I'm like, "You don't know how to write a check." Because for me, it was normal. I didn't knew that other people don't get to do that. So it was a later realization that you really got to do a lot of things that other people didn't get to do. And that actually helps in whatever I do in life. I mean, I can walk into any room and say, ask anyone for anything without any hesitation or anything. I mean, when I was 13, my dad was denied a bank account because he's blind. And I was 13 and I just went online and found, like, search for the RBI circular, took a printout, went to the bank again, threw it in the face of the manager. This is it. You cannot deny. So, like, advocating for the thing which is right, I think that came on really early. And that I take it as the biggest positive. So, yeah, it was fun.
That's very inspiring, Neha. And so is banking at 12. So, as Planet Able has been one of the world's first venture to provide accessible leisure excursions to persons with disability, you've certainly had the first mover advantage. However, this also means that no feedback or past experiences or to learn from, to be cautious about. How will you describe your step-by-step journey in setting up Planet Able?
When we started traveling. So I never went for a holiday as a child. My parents never went for a holiday until a few years ago. And when I started earning, I thought, oh, it was just the money, we didn't have to travel. But it wasn't the case. So the first thing I did when I started earning was save money and plan a holiday. Only to realize when we went there, oh, it's not the money, it's the inaccessibility. Fighting for basic access. I mean, you go to a temple or anything and ask for an extra accommodation in terms of accessibility, they are not very keen to help you out on that. So I got into arguments. Then my parents were like, you fight everywhere. That was 2009. And that was the tipping point where my parents said, okay, we are not going anywhere. And I looked for solutions, there were none. Even globally, the companies, there are still, like, there were companies, but they focused on, okay, a company for wheelchair users because the founder is a wheelchair user, or a company for the blind because the founder is blind. I mean, one, that does not work for our family because my father is blind and mother is a wheelchair user, so they cannot cater to both their needs. Plus, I found it discriminatory that, the disability cannot define how and where you are traveling. So, along with my job, so I worked in the corporate for about 9 years. And along with that, I have been hustling side by side just for the fun sake because I like doing challenging stuff. So, I had some few ventures in the past as well as businesses which I started, and motivation for each of them were different. I shut them down or abandoned it because I lost interest or I found I'm not the right person to do it. So when this happened, and I realized, okay, if I have to do this, I have to do this the right way because I cannot abandon this. If this is a problem I am facing, there are other people also facing. And I talked to them, they were like, yeah, we are not traveling or we are having these challenges. I'm like, if I have to do it, I have to be extra sure that it is financially sustainable because I cannot just run away like other businesses. Yeah. So I did my homework for 2 to 3 years, talked to the disabled community, other people, what their experiences are, what are the expectations from traveling are, and sat at airports overnight, multiple, counting the number of people coming out who are disabled and who are traveling. Because airports are considered to be more disabled friendly than other modes of transport. And there was no data about disabled people traveling in India. There still isn't. So I had to build that data. I mean, what is the data on which I base the business on? And talking to concierge of hotels and at the airport and at the hotels, like, are they traveling for work? Are they traveling for leisure? How, on an average, how long are they staying? So all of these were the groundwork I did for 2 to 3 years. And then one day, sitting in Adobe's office, I was like, okay, if not now, then when? You get that epiphany that now you're ready. So I had retired parents by that time. I had bills to pay, a decent lifestyle to support. I mean, salary is the biggest addiction to let go of. I realized nothing will change if I wait for 2, 3 more years. I had still had no money because I had burnt all of it in my previous businesses. But I was like, no, let's do it and I'll take it one day or maybe 1 month at a time. That's when we launched Planetable 1st of January 2016. I went broke in the process after 3 years because there was no reference when you were talking about the reference, because there was no pricing model I could look at. There was no right target audience identification model to look at, and no like how much margin. I was completely new to the tourism industry. I knew no one in the industry. I was perhaps the least traveled myself to start a company into travel. So it was like everything was starting from zero. But I knew one thing, that there will be no plan B. So even when I went broke after 3 years, and my friend said, why don't you go back to the corporate, make some money, and then come back? That thought had never occurred to me. I just have to put my head down and see how to put money in the bank. And that's when things change. So
You mentioned hotels and concierge and conveyance agencies that you were in touch with. Was there any situation where there was ridicule or mockery for the cause that you were working towards?
oh, yes. When I started the company, the industry really didn't know how to cater to travelers with disabilities. And I went to the hotels, they were like, they don't travel. Why are you bothered? We have one room. So, 4 star and above have one room out of compliance. And that is also not getting filled. I'm like, because you are not doing it right. You're not telling the world that you're accessible. People assume you're not accessible, and budget hotels are still not accessible till today. So it's a catch 22. It's not something that they don't want to travel. It's just that you are not accessible for them to travel. Plus, it was also training these people, training the ecosystem, training the transport providers, training the hotel staff. Okay, if you have a blind guest staying at the hotel, how would you assist them at the restaurant? How do you assist them while they're navigating the hotel and its various services? And also training, working with the guides, that how to find accessible routes. This is the body language, these are the words that you use. How do you communicate with the deaf if they are on a trip with you? So all of these aspects, we trained everyone on this at no cost in the start, and that was another reason for me going bankrupt. Another challenge I faced as a woman was, like, transport providers would say, Madam, connect us to your boss or some male member of your team who can talk to us. We cannot talk to you. I'm like, why? Because, you are a woman and things like that. I'm like, I'm the boss. You gotta talk to me. There's no other boss. And disabled people have told me, you can't do this yourself. This must be a hobby or a side project. You must be having a boyfriend or a partner with you helping you in this, because it is hardcore logistics. And these are disabled people, affluent ones, asking me these questions. Or, do you drink? Do you smoke? Like, why are you even bothered? That's my personal life, got nothing to do with you. So yeah, there is a prejudice that such high logistic work cannot be done by a woman, or they are not willing to talk to you just because you're a woman. But you have to put your foot down, dude. You gotta talk to me, there's no one else.
Happy to prove them wrong.
Yes.
Also, while talking about like low representation of women, why do you think that that is the case? Why is there low percentage of women entrepreneurs in the tourism sector? And what measures would you suggest for the statistics to change positively?
So I think why the reason why there is low women representation. So travel industry by far has a huge number of women workforce, by the way, in comparison to other industries. But still, not many women are in the leading positions per se. I mean, you have now companies coming in promoting women travel and all of that. But still, I think a lot of it's hardcore logistics. So there are challenges that exist, and the acceptance by the industry of women leaders. Like there was this event happening last month only, a big tourism industry event, and there was not a single woman on the panel. And I just pointed it out on Facebook when they had posted about it. And the guy who's the chairman, he said, "Oh, yeah, we have always open. You should just reach out to us." I'm like, we should reach out to you to ask for speaking on a panel. You should be inviting leaders already who have done good work. It is on you to get them recognized. None of these associations have women in their leadership, in the leading positions to advocate for their representation, because it's bureaucracy, it's mansplaining, all of that still exists. I'm not part of any association because I find it a waste of time to convince them on anything. You just do your work. Women mostly focus on their work rather than getting into all of these things. So I think this needs to change in terms of representation, especially for the tourism industry, because in terms of hospitality, women are better than men. You can say whatever, as a large part of it are better than the men who are leading it.
As a woman entrepreneur, how would you describe your journey so far?
Exciting. It's always day one. Um, I'd say it's been learning experience, evolving not just as an entrepreneur but also as a human being. Like being an entrepreneur changes you in amazing ways. Like if you are working in a corporate and if you are an entrepreneur and building something from scratch, that too without even a reference or how to build it, you grow in ways that you cannot even imagine, because you do things that were never done before. You just figure it out. You face a challenge, now how do you figure it out? It's like a firefighting mode most of the time. And sometimes it's a lonely journey. How many people might support you? So my parents didn't support me when I started it, okay? Disclaimer. There are only two people, difficult to manage. How would you manage so many people? And they're from the service class industry. So most of the time, as an entrepreneur, male or female, you will find your family, because their intentions are not bad, but they want you to be in a comfortable and safe environment. But only you, as an entrepreneur, know this is not your life path. Your life path is something that you only know and you will only build. You might not be clear when you are taking the first step what lies ahead, but you know the next five steps perhaps, that this is what gives me happiness. So, that being said, I mean, I just followed my heart doing it, and it's been tough in the sense putting everyone wrong. So, for example, when I started, everyone said focus on one single disability. It's easier to do, and most of the businesses that have been done, you have a reference, it's easy. I mean, even the business mentors who were there with me, they all told me the same thing. But I'm like, I'm not gonna do it this way. I'm gonna do it the way which I feel is right, being inclusive, not choosing one disability, rather taking it all. Because what is happening is people think, let's do in the short term, focus on one disability, let's solve it for them, and then we'll go on to another. And then we'll solve it for them. You cannot do it, because again you are putting it into segregation, and the mindset of the society will never change. You have to say no, everyone goes together, and that is how you do it. So none of these mentors are with me today. Even the investors I've had talks with, they have been like that. But I knew this is the only way to go. It has been difficult, but I think I am on the right path. So this is something being an entrepreneur is, that proving everyone wrong, just follow your heart. You know only as an entrepreneur what is the path that is going to take, you are going to take. Sometimes there might not be any precedent at all.
So you know your path is a key insight.
Yes. In the sense, as an entrepreneur, every experience that you go through is a learning experience.
Yeah.
And it's on you how much you learn. So, like, for example, after 7 years of business, now what we are trying to do is completely different from what we have been doing till date. And I'm as excited about the future as I was at day one of starting the company, because somewhere you know that, yeah, this is what you're doing is right.
You mentioned about the trip that you took with your parents before. So when you decided to go for that trip, you couldn't enjoy the trip due to lack of facilities. But after starting Planet Able, you took another trip. And how did that feel? Also, how did it feel to finally find a solution to a problem so close to you?
In terms of accessibility, a lot of it is still wheelchair focused. Even Singapore hasn't done much about people who are blind or have other types of disabilities. But still, I could find ways to, through props and everything, to engage and create an inclusive experience for my father as well. And they had really like a great, great time. After that, they went with my sister and her husband and son to Europe as well. They enjoy and they love travel. To just make them do that and enjoy life like anyone else, I think that is the purpose, to spread this happiness not just to your family, to anyone else like your family, because they are not able to travel for the challenges that exist in the world. I mean, it's not that disability is a problem, it's the inaccessible environment, inaccessible technology and communication, inaccessible information that is the problem.
Yeah. Neha, you've received multiple awards for Planet Abled, like Best Innovative Practice Award in United Nations, National Award for Most Unique and Innovative Tourism Product by the Ministry of Tourism, the India Responsible Tourism Award 2016, to name a few. How do you now envision to take your venture ahead and scale up?
Okay, that's a very good question because I'm excited to tell you about that. What happened during COVID was we had a very good couple of years before that. After I went bankrupt, and couple of years were great for the business. Then COVID happened, and then it came as a realization. Okay, the way we have been doing business is not going to work anymore. We have to look at other things. That how can we increase the impact? How many people can travel with us in a year? I mean, even the best of companies that have been existing for 30 years, 100,000 or maximum 200,000 people travel with them in a year. And here we are talking about 1.3 billion persons with disabilities globally. That's 15% of the world population. Then there are 1 billion older people, and out of them, 46% already have a disability. We will never be able to reach there. And in all of my international travels, which I've been fortunate to have, I saw that even globally, the focus is on wheelchair accessibility. US, yes, lies a bit fair ahead than other countries in every aspect because they have the Americans with Disability Act for already 32 years. But apart from that, everywhere the focus is wheelchair accessibility. And that is like around 11 to 12% of the disabled people. The rest have other types of disabilities, mostly hidden or invisible. So, how do you talk about accessibility for them and their needs when they are traveling? And being a travel service provider is not going to solve that because the systems are not changing, the environment is not changing. There's still one room or two room, or in other countries a little more, but they are still not sufficient for disabled people if they want to travel in big groups. It is not sufficient. They are not even made suitable to their needs because they are made out of compliance. And even if the laws exist in various countries and companies comply to them, like the hotels comply or the tourism boards comply, they comply because they want to save themselves from any legal dispute. They are not focused on the disabled traveler. So you could have a wonderful experience at an airport, but the moment you are at the aircraft door, the legal responsibility shifts from the airport to the airline, and there it breaks. And then things go bad. And we have been hearing so many people having bad experiences while flying by air. And we are not even getting into the details of traveling by train or by bus. So, how do you solve these problems? How do you enable the industry to be accessible and inclusive? So, my goal now is to become irrelevant as a travel service provider in the next decade and enable more enablers globally who can take this forward as their own business. Like every business works towards accessibility and inclusion as an integral part of it, as important as their regular customer service. So now what we are trying to do is we creating global standards for accessibility and inclusion for the tourism industry, which anyone will be able to adopt, followed by certification, which they can take once they have done the groundwork at their establishment or their business. It could be a travel company, a tourism board, a hotel, a museum, anyone, a restaurant. And they start from where they are. I mean, they don't have to be accessible for all disabilities in one go. They can start from being autism friendly and blind friendly first and get certified for it, and then they can move on to complete accessibility certification. So, giving a step by step process to them, because we want to handhold them and tell them, let's mainstream accessibility, let's not keep it separate. So this is what we are doing, and this is would be a global implementation through our partners. We're doing the first stakeholder consultation in February as well in Vienna at the United Nations at the Zero Project Conference. After this, we're creating a technology platform wherein people can just access all of this information and make more informed decisions about their travel. This makes it affordable. It gives the industry the economies of scale, because today traveling with a disability is expensive. Why do you need a specialized service provider if you can go and plan it yourself? So, giving that freedom of choice to everyone, just like any other traveler, whether they want to travel in a budgetary way or in a luxury way, they have both the options available. So that is what we are going to do now, to work with more businesses and tourism boards and ministries and establishments, and helping them become accessible and inclusive to welcome travelers with all types of disabilities. And to answer your question about how do we create a carefree experience for travelers with disabilities, so what we do is we go through an exhaustive destination development process before anyone can travel anywhere. So we go there and then we audit the place. Okay, how accessible it is for what all types of disabilities and the kind of experiences it can offer to the diverse set of people. And then we build the ecosystem in terms of training the hotel staff, the transport providers, and working with the guides to look at accessible routes, working on accessible communication and information being available. And we also, when someone travels, we do an accessibility needs assessment with them before we create a travel experience for them, because every disabled person is different. Even though there could be two persons who are wheelchair users, but their accessibility needs could be completely different. So we have to get into the details of it and design according to their requirements so that the whole travel experience is seamless. I think because I have lived all my life managing these challenges, a lot of it comes intuitively where things can go wrong. So wherever things can go wrong, we kind of do a contingency plan for that so that that doesn't happen. That is how we create these experiences.
And how long does one experience typically take end to end?
Oh, so we do like a 1 day experience and sometimes even lasting about few weeks. So we have a trip going on at the moment, which is like 45 days. So it depends how long people want to travel and where.
So, Neha, on a lighter note, a rapid fire round for you.
Okay.
Favorite book?
Wonder by R.J. Palacio and Alchemist, which I think is a favorite for a lot of people.
Favorite author?
Not really a particular one because I read across dimensions.
Best quote?
Life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain.
Favorite food?
Golgappe,
Your go to pastime activity?
photography,
Neha's role model?
my parents,
One quality you value the most in a person?
honesty and integrity.
How would you like to be remembered?
Someone who changed the way travel exists in this world forever and made it inclusive for everyone.
That brings us to the last question of the show. And that would be what would be your top three advice to women entrepreneurs to staying determined in achieving their goals?
Don't listen to your parents. Yeah, That is the most important advice. Or anyone around you who wants you to stay safe and comfortable because you have other priorities in life, which the society is expecting you to do. Don't listen to anyone. It might sound very rebellious, but I think that is one thing you have to do, because most of the time, people who are the closest to us and who wants us to be safe are, this is the biggest hurdle for you to dream big and to do big. There's so you just take whatever you can learn from whosoever. It could be a small child, it could be an elderly person you meet in the park just once, or it could be anyone online who is creating videos. It's just that take the best, what you feel is the best, and just clear the noise, rest of the noise. And the third is, I think, which is a bigger challenge, is what people find is getting intimidated. Mansplaining exists, patriarchy exists, and sometimes, most often actually, not sometimes, you would be the only woman in the room. Take that authority and build on it. You don't have to get intimidated by these all men who are around you, who might try to put their thoughts onto you, or not listen to you. Don't care. Really, why should you care? Don't care about anyone. Do what you feel is right, and don't ever think what other people think of you. I mean, once you've grown to that stage, you are dangerously well equipped and confident to anything that you are set to do.
Thank you so much, Neha, for sharing your remarkable journey with us. It was a pleasure to have you on Super 3.
Thank you so much for having me. The pleasure was equally mine. Thank you.
Glad. On that note, I, Shambhavi Sharma, would like to say goodbye. We will be back with another episode of Super 3 Women in the Startup Ecosystem, powered by Startup India DPIIT. Till then, my ladies, keep dreaming, setting goals, and staying determined to achieve what you desire. Thank you.